Good evening, this is the Oscar expert here with Brother Bro, and it's time for 2025 Oscar predictions. We're welcoming in the new year. There's no such thing as it being too soon. In fact, one could say that we're even a little late to the party.
Because we didn't release it the day after the Oscars, which means we're late.
Well, we've been thinking about it. We haven't had time to sit on things.
You
need
need a lot of time to sit. You need a lot of time
correct.
to compile the list. I was able to release 2025 predictions for the Oscars and other awards bodies like the SAG, Critics' Choice, BAFTAs, on Award Expert. And you can put your 2024 and 2025 favorite movies into the app, and you can categorize them the same way that the Oscars categorize their films. I'm having real fun looking at everybody's predictions. So now, we get a sense of what everybody is thinking, actually.
There was no way this early in the year prior to your app
unprecedented.
to sense an aggregate for...
No, yes, now there's an aggregate.
So
we can actually go down the list of the community at some point in this video and just say what's happening. Oh my, get her. Where's she going?
doing?
What does she think she can leave? You can't leave.
Oh, no.
Maybe she'll be back.
Okay.
She'll be back.
Quick disclaimer about things that we're not having on this list. First of all, movies that are not coming out. Tarantino's movie, Paul Thomas Anderson's movie. Mickey 17's coming out in January. I don't understand this. Maybe they'll put it back. Like, I probably wouldn't put it in my top 10 anyway. Even just the release date switching in general is just like, okay, what's going on here? Lynn Ramsey's Polaris. I think this is in like production or maybe post. I don't know. But
It's in production, I think.
Ella Mackay, which is from James L. Brooks, who's been not really hitting lately, but the cast is really good on this one. It's a maybe for this year. Terrence Malick's The Way of the Wind. You know, I thought this was going to come out this year, but
Insane.
It's just not feeling like this is going to be true. Maybe we'll have to wait till... Venice to see if it's really happening, but the rumor is that it's not going to be ready.
There's just not been a word that it's out of the editing jungle.
The Room Next Door, Almodovar's film, is in production. This has Tilda Swinton, Julianne Moore. If that comes out, that would be big, but probably not. Baumbach has a film that's in production. Make a cast on this one. Kind of a comedy. Very unclear what he's doing or if it's going to be like as big in scope as his past two. And also SNL 1975, which is like a big ensemble piece and maybe could squeeze in at the end of the year.
It sounds really fun and funny. The cast includes Sammy Fabelman, Cooper Hoffman, and Rachel Sennett.
I also want to say, you will not see me talk about Wicked Part 1. Like, I'm just not... like, the trailer was giving mid-Disney film. I know it's not a Disney film, but the trailer made it look like it had blue screen syndrome. It just looks like a no-nomination movie.
All right.
And I won't have it right now.
All right.
It's funny how I couldn't be further from predicting the new Barry Jenkins film, but we're not predicting new Mufasa, and nobody is anyway.
Oh, no.
Twisters isn't going to be Top Gun Maverick. I'm sorry. No. Here's the list. All right, we got 3 movies that I'm confident having in the top 10. This year's actually, unlike other years, I'm very not confident about it. We don't have as many obvious heavy hitters.
Last year was like easy to stack the top 10. Christopher Nolan, Greta Gerwig. You could just throw Martin Scorsese, throwing them all in there, and then they all like happened at the end. And we got a very good score for like our early predictions. I think we got 5.
Yeah, we got 6.
We got 6. That's like insanely
good. The new
good.
Pain film and
so
everything.
This is unlike last year. The strike really pushed a lot of stuff to next year. There's kind of a gap in terms of what is able to come out this year because films could not shoot last fall and last summer.
All right, so Sing Sing, we saw this at TIFF. We have this at number 1. Do you agree that it's number 1?
I 100% agree that this is number 1.
All right, listen. First of all, it just won the audience award at South by Southwest, so that's cool.
That was at South by Southwest?
Yeah.
There's absolutely no way that they could drop this. They could drop the ball on Sing Sing.
Listen,
it's too much of a layup.
It might not make like a ass ton of money, which is maybe its biggest obstacle, but like this movie is heartwarming. It's got a great message. It leaves people hopeful.
Yeah.
And when the cast came
it feels
out,
important.
After the movie, when the cast came onto the stage and everyone was applauding, I could not help but think, this is what you do. This is what wins SAG Ensemble.
Having not gone to Cannes, it's one of the longest I've stood for applause. And I would say it was up there with when Brendan Fraser came out for The Whale at TIFF. There's just a lot of goodwill because the actors have gone through that system themselves. And there's so much empathy for that situation, especially after you finish the film. So it's very much like a SAG Ensemble winner.
If that doesn't happen, I'll be surprised.
Yeah. When it comes down to the Best Picture lineup, I'm pretty sure it's going to be there. You're going to look at Sing Sing and you're going to see a film that says, this is important, this is heartfelt, this actually has a substance, it has a message, it's meaningful.
Some tinges of its likability as like a prison film reminded me of Shawshank Redemption, which is, of course, known as one of the most liked movies of all time.
It's not like
it's
that
going to
movie
have
that
over
much.
an 8 on IMDb.
You think so?
Yes,
Over an 8?
I do think that.
Really? Or not just like an 8 or a 7.9?
Maybe an 8 flat.
That's like really big. For
It is big. Well, Coda has an 8. Okay, like I genuinely think it's that level of like people will fucking love it.
You'll cry. It could take screenplay and best actor too.
Yeah, that's right.
It could take screenplay
and Clarence Macklin is, that trailer to me said they understand he's getting a supporting nomination. Some people are trying to predict Paul Raci over him. This is Clarence Macklin's
Clarence
game,
Macklin.
Okay?
Yeah.
Maybe they'll try to do something with Paul Raci, but I just didn't see it. Some people have Dune Part 2 at number 1. And hey, I don't really blame you. Like, I kind of see it. I can see how it could win a bunch of
Well,
checks.
actually, most people have it at number 1. And
according to
we can't blame people because people like to put at number 1 what they've seen.
And you could say Denis Villeneuve win director. We just had Oppenheimer win, which was a huge movie.
Especially when you look
director
around at this lineup, it's like, what else could win here? It's not super obvious. I think that's pretty safe to say, okay, I'll put him there until proven otherwise. Also, I'm not convinced he's winning, though. I'm actually not.
I think there's a great chance. I think it's either him or what? Like,
I do feel like Dune
Francis Ford
coming
Coppola,
out early in the year, we have to see what that means.
This thing doesn't look like it's budging from the top 20 on IMDb right now. Like, it is firmly like...
Top 20?
It's number 12 right now. It's number 12. So it's like right up there with all those Lord of the Rings films. Like, people really are, it's very different from the first. I don't see how this movie won't get double-digit nominations. I would be very shocked to hear that.
Yeah, I think it'll get all the nominations it wants to get. I don't believe. I don't believe in it getting an acting nomination. I just don't.
So Dune's definitely in there. We've seen 2 of these movies, and we very much believe and know that they're happening.
Dune's in there. Dune was it was more than part 1. Part 1 got a ton of nominations. All you need to know.
Number 3 is Blitz. This is like one of the most big Oscar packages that we have, and we don't have that many.
Yeah.
And it just is going to be very, very good. You have Steve McQueen. He's only had 1 Oscar contender, really. But this is a World War II fucking movie with Saoirse Ronan, like, in what is probably the lead or, like, one of the bigger ensemble parts of it. Probably the lead. Yeah. Harris Dickinson as well, who maybe he gets supporting. Yeah. Or Stephen Graham, maybe for supporting as well. So I think this is also like potentially SAG ensemble type of deal. It's production design, it's cinematography, it's score if that's a thing. Like it just is one of those movies. It's got acting.
We should read the synopsis. This is following the stories of a group of Londoners during the aerial bombing of the British capital during the war, being World War II. Look, Saoirse Ronan leading the film, that says a lot. That says actually like all I need to know. Saoirse Ronan helming a Steve McQueen film. Say no more.
It's a war film.
Say no more. What am I supposed to do?
It's a war film.
What else am I supposed to do?
It's going to have a sound nomination.
What am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to not? Am I supposed to guess that this won't?
No.
I'm not going to
You can't do that. And it's also Apple TV's only
during a bombing? Sound?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely sound. Number 4, and this is where I stopped being 100% confident about things. And maybe I shouldn't be 100% confident about Blitz, but I have Conclave. My first thought about Conclave, like just looking it up, hearing about it, I was like, okay, cool. Edward Berger, who just did All Quiet on the Western Front, like, we understand that he's a very capable filmmaker. I didn't want to fall into the trap of like, oh, just because he did 1 Oscar movie means that now he's like this awards bait director forever and ever. And I was like, I can see a world where Conclave is just mid, like, right? Like it comes out at Toronto and people think it's fine.
Or I read the word thriller in the genre.
Scary word.
And it's a scary word for me, it really is, when I think about Oscar films. Like, that's why, we didn't put The Killer on for our predictions last year, and that turned out to be correct.
But you should...
Often, like, a mystery thriller is not really Oscar's territory.
Not a mystery film.
No, it's not.
It is a bit.
But I think it sort of is. But here's the thing. I think this is more of, like, a political thriller.
It's about, like, a group of cardinals who are competing to be like elected or to be the next pope, right?
Over the next 72 hours. So it's a 72-hour. It's like a time crunched film
editing
with a very ticking clock, and there's a lot of obviously like power dynamics and
it's power dynamics. It's politics. It's people who have secrets. It's politics. People say that the book, which one of the writers who wrote the book is doing the screenplay. People say the book is a real page turner. So I think this is going to be a crowd pleaser, an easy to like movie, a well put together film based on the director. And look, you have Ray Fiennes, you have John Lithgow, you have Isabella Rossellini, and you have Stanley Tucci. So this is a great cast.
Look,
this is a great cast.
The only thing it gives me pause about is like, what if it's the Goldfinch?
The Goldfinch had like Ansel Elgort in the lead. This has Ray Fiennes in the lead, who people want to win an Oscar.
The writer of this film did do the screenplay for the Goldfinch.
That's
now,
fine.
I don't know what went
Whatever.
wrong with the Goldfinch. Like, I think who was John Crowley who did Brooklyn. Yeah, so that was kind of weird. It does give Goldfinch a little bit, but
I think it's different though. I think that the politics is like Goldfinch was like a mom novel. This is a real like
the thing about
Oscars
the thing
thriller.
about Conclave.
And it's focus features. You do want to try to pick one of their movies. Some people are predicting Nosferatu. I don't agree with that. It's got a hot steaming little sizzling release date right in November. Like that's what they're trying to do.
Yeah, they know.
You understand?
It's Oscar bait, and so I would say I also have this in my top 10. It's not because it's Edward Berger. It's mostly because of the actors and
the subject matter,
and the kind of genre. Even though it's a thriller, I do believe that the genre is
it's the right kind of thriller.
Yeah,
right?
And it seems like a fall festival play. When I'm making my acting predictions, this is where I'm like, okay, Conclave, I kind of got to put that in, like actor and supporting actress. Like, I don't really see another way to do it at this point. Okay, so Joker followed is in an interesting position. Obviously, you could frame its position as being very easy, and you could also frame it as being very difficult, like it has an uphill or it has a downhill slide to the Oscars, okay? Joker Part 1, it did extremely well. It got 11 nominations. It won Best Actor. It did extremely well. It was a very popular movie. It made $1 billion. But Joker has a weird reputation because people think it's not as good as people think it is. And I think it hasn't necessarily grown on people with rewatches. Let's put it that way.
Well, it does depend who you're talking about.
I would say like people are going into the next Joker being a little skeptical.
When Joker came out, it was kind of a lightning in the bottle situation a bit. The buzz around the movie was that this movie's like dangerous.
Yeah.
And so the movie seemed edgy and it seemed like it was pushing boundaries. And I think as we sit with it, and it, it's like Joker's like a normal movie kind of. Like it wasn't really that crazy to begin with. The sequel has different things going for it. Like it's a musical.
I feel like the sequel hinges.
It's Lady Gaga.
I think the success hinges on how different it's going to be from the first one, and whether it can rattle people again, but in a totally different way. And I do feel like that is what's going on here. The buzz being around Joaquin Phoenix for a second time makes me skeptical, but the fact that we have Lady Gaga to like buzz around this time makes me more hopeful for the film as well.
I feel
and
like
it's hard to leave her out of Best Actress at this point.
I can close my eyes and say, look, I actually don't think Joker 2 is gonna like happen at the Oscars. In the same way that like, look, a comic book film getting in is rare, and 2 in a row, like The Dark Knight Rises didn't happen, did it? Black Panther Wakanda Forever didn't happen, did it?
Yeah, but
everyone was predicting
different.
Dark Knight Rises.
Joker is different from like other superhero films because it's not really a superhero.
Well, so is
film.
The Dark Knight.
Sequels are tricky. They're tricky. I think Joker 2 will determine a lot. It will even determine how people see Joker 1. Whether we look back at Joker 1 and we're like, that shit was a classic. Kind of like Avatar 2. Yeah, Avatar 2 was like, oh, the first one isn't that good in retrospect. And people were like, guys, never mind. James Cameron's a genius and he always has been.
They're going to say that about Todd Phillips. I feel like...
Well, people are going to be reluctant to, but I mean, honestly, he might feel like now I have to up my game even more because it felt like he went into Joker with a lot to prove. Like he was trying to do something, and he did accomplish a lot.
When sequels get nominated, though, with their predecessor having already been nominated, typically they're like the big fantasy epic thing, like Dune and Avatar. This is a comic book film.
Yeah.
And we've never seen 2 comic book films nominated from the same series.
But this is also the most nominated comic book film. Also, it's guaranteed to make $1 million. It's guaranteed.
That's fine.
So you have Joker audience plus Gaga fans. That equals like $1.25 billion.
I'm just very skeptical. Like, I do think it's a plus that it's a musical. I think that gives, the movie an edge for production design again, and cinematography and sound and all these things. Like, I think that gives it yet another boost.
Also, the Lady Gaga fans have a gun to my head, and they're telling me to put Lady Gaga at #1 the whole year.
#1?
And so I'm so sorry, everybody. I have to put Lady Gaga in for the entire year because the Lady Gaga fans have a gun to my head, and I know they're following me.
Maybe Catherine Keener gets nominated for this.
Too many undeniable things about the movie. The production design, costumes, makeup, from a craft perspective, probably cinematography, score, and actress.
Well, that wouldn't happen if the movie
That all
sucked.
seems very likely to be buzzed about.
If the movie's very good, yeah.
But we can't go wrong.
Can't go wrong!
Can't go wrong.
You're not using your imagination enough. If you think that Joker 2 couldn't go wrong. You're not using your imagination.
It's not called Joker 2. It's called Joker Folly of
which is maybe pretentious.
I actually feel good about Joker.
I'm okay with maybe putting it into the top 10, but I don't want to pretend like I'm sold on it, okay?
I feel like it's just trying something new and different. It's easy for me to see it being a no-brainer, actually a no-brainer. And then it's also easy for me to like go to your side and be like, really though? But I am leaning towards that it's a little too much of a
I think it being a musical makes it Oscar bait.
Yes. I kind of hope they don't go back to the stairs to do like a musical.
They are going back to the stairs. They literally have a scene where they go to the stairs and Joaquin Phoenix is like, come on, Lady Gaga, let me show you how it's done. And they fucking dance. Like, they actually did that.
All right.
They act like, this is why I mean, like, it could be really cringe.
Well,
like,
the first one got 11 nominations.
I know.
People complained about it all year.
It's fine.
So.
It's fine. Another big movie that I guess is sort of controversial as to how big it is The Apprentice. This took a little bit of convincing for me to get on board with it because this is about Donald Trump in his, apprentice era, his 80s era, where he was a big New York hotshot before he ran for president. Things going for this movie. The director is Ali Abbasi, who did Holy Spider and Border, which are both, good movies, well-made movies that have good performances in them. You have Sebastian Stan playing Donald Trump, which is like, okay, it's very hard to imagine because nobody's been able to do a Donald Trump performance that's not like purely comedic, and it would be very difficult to do so because of his odd mannerisms. I'm really curious to see how this performance pans out. Like, I cannot imagine it. Sebastian Stan doesn't make more sense to me, but I feel like we aren't going to live in the world where it's like, that was just weird and didn't make sense. Like, I feel like somehow it is going to make sense.
Yeah, I think it's going to work.
Part of what convinced me, too, is Jeremy Strong playing Roy Cohn and Maria Bakalova playing Ivana Trump. Like, those are both great.
They're going to be fun performances.
Yeah, you can see them.
I feel like it's going to be very chaotic. I think it's going to be chaotic and fun.
And the writer, I think, is a green flag because this guy, I actually don't think that he seems like, just like some angry Hollywood guy who just like fucking like wants to take down Trump so badly that he's just like sitting in his room fuming and writes a script. Like, this guy's been researching Trump for like a long time.
So he's very interested in these conservative American icons, and that makes him very trustworthy to me because as a journalist, which he is, like, I agree, he's not like just fuming and in like a rage about, I hate Trump and blah blah blah, because you could have many good reasons to hate Trump, but like it just wouldn't make a compelling movie off of your spite alone. So, if he wants to examine America like through Trump, I think that's awesome. And looking at Trump through a different decade, like before he was president, I think that's also a good thing. If I were to imagine a Trump movie, I would think about Adam McKay making like a modern day Trump movie, and I think it's kind of cringe. This to me seems more like an examination of America, capitalism, and conservatism in the way that it has kind of persisted.
And I think it'll also be very well researched.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just going to make shit up. The purpose of the movie, to many people, is going to be like, oh, this movie exposes, how Trump always was like this. He was always like this corrupt guy. He was always doing this and that. It's going to resonate with Hollywood in an election year, right? Don't you think?
It could be a lot about his taxes. I mean, there's that. Also, as you point out, it's an election year. Trump is a major topic once again.
I think that people will probably say, we don't want this. No one asked for this. I don't need to see a movie about Trump. And then their curiosity will get the best of them and they'll see it anyway. Well, I think this could get mixed reviews like Vice or Don't Look Up. And it just depends if it's playing to that audience well enough.
I mean, the thing for me is like, this is going to be impossible to ignore. It does seem like a fall festival player. There's even it actually might be a rumor that it's going to be a camp.
Because Ali Abbasi's played there before, so they would invite him back and it might be there. Yeah.
The other thing I see for this movie is like a strong screenplay and acting play. And maybe a SAG ensemble.
I understand being skeptical, but I think it checks a lot of boxes.
Yeah.
It does check a lot of boxes. And
even the director being like not just someone from TV.
Yeah, no, the director's good, and the director's good with actors too. The two lead performances in Holy Spider are excellent.
So it's definitely one of the more high profile, like, Oscar-y movies, I would say.
Yeah, it doesn't have a distributor either. So we'll see, who ends up, picking up the movie or whatever. Another big movie we could talk about is The Nickel Boys. We talked about this last year a little bit because we thought it was coming out. It's from Ramel Ross, who had an Oscar-nominated documentary that's actually pretty experimental. It's hard to judge what kind of narrative filmmaker he will be based off of that movie or what people say about it.
But I think it is promising because from what people say about the documentary, it seems to have a very clear, like, visual language. It's very visually poetic.
It's based on a book that got a lot of attention, won a Pulitzer Prize. Now, that doesn't always correlate to, like, you know, Oscar success. They've adapted lots of books that have won lots of awards and stuff, and they've been like, okay or whatever.
The film's about a juvenile reform institution in the United States, which gained a reputation for severe abuse of students and even murder of students by staff. So grisly subject matter, and a story that was uncovered fairly recently. The population of the school was largely African American, so there's definitely like racism at play here as well. So I think people could consider this story an important chapter, an important light shined onto a piece of American history.
I don't know if the book does this at all, but the movie is also about investigators who are like uncovering all of this.
Yeah.
And I think this is where Angelina Ellis's character comes in. I don't think that she makes sense as anybody who's in the book, and it's likely a supporting performance, but that's important, I think, to have at least somebody on board who's like kind of a big name, an Oscar nominee.
I think her character, too, as a detective who is witnessing everything, is kind of grounding the film. So I really do imagine that whatever category she's in, whether it's lead or supporting, that she will be in contention if this movie is a thing.
Sounds like a Telluride TIFF type of, you know, premiere. Amazon and MGM are going to do this one.
Yeah, I think the main thing is that people may consider this film very important and impactful.
Another big contender that people have on, and one of the big reasons is because of the studio, is The Piano Lesson. This is the third film that's in the Denzel Washington produced August Wilson series, and he is nepoing his other son to direct.
But John David Washington is also
starring in it. With Samuel L. Jackson, who I think that's major supporting actor. Yeah. And possibly a win.
Yeah, everyone's saying
and possibly a win. Everybody knows he's number one right now.
Yeah.
It's a big role. And he's done it on Broadway. It's just like Viola Davis in Fences.
Yeah.
And so honestly, like, that alone, saying that, you know, Netflix is doing another one of these films and you have maybe a supporting actor winner, like,
and the past two films, Fences got nominated for Best Picture. Ma Rainey came very close, but didn't get nominated. Still got 5 Oscar nominations, though, including 2 lead acting performances.
Yeah, but here's the thing. It seems to me that these films are having diminishing returns. This one will probably feel a lot like a play once again, which is something that kind of took down Ma Rainey and also did seem to take down One Night in Miami as well. I think that the fact that they didn't nominate Ma Rainey for screenplay showed that this one's very vulnerable to not be nominated once again. They might be like, well, you know, you're doing the verbatim script thing, like we nominated that in Fences and now we're kind of done doing that.
And also the director being like, you know, unproven, I guess. We haven't seen what he's done before. There's not really reason for me to think that this will escape the pitfalls of like filmed play accusations that this is.
No, I don't think so. I mean, even Fences got that. Hey, actually, you have Mike Jalakis doing the cinematography, so we might want to take that back. John David Washington, we lead, like, I think probably not him, but I do think maybe Danielle Deadwyler gets some redemption here. Danielle Deadwyler redemption gets nominated, maybe.
She could be nominated to see that. And supporting actress, I think.
You know, if Samuel L. Jackson is going to win supporting actor, and it is Netflix, and, you know, the last 2 were pretty successful, like, there's a pretty good case to make that the movie could get Best Picture. Maybe it'll get SAG Ensemble again, because all these movies do.
Yeah, I mean, so there actually is a lot going for The Piano Lesson.
I do think there's reason to believe that maybe Netflix is going to start dwindling as an awards studio. This is because they said recently they're going to stop funding, like, giant prestige projects, which means we're not going to get another, like, White Noise or The Irishman. They were funding those movies to try to gain prestige. Now they have the prestige. And I think they're content focused now. These movies are probably not that expensive. Like, they'll probably keep cranking out, like, I think they still have a deal with, like, the Denzel Washington, August Wilson stuff. So I think there are going to be some years in the future, or maybe this year, where, like, Netflix just doesn't have, like, that giant prestige maestro, like, no-brainer kind of contender. You know, they have, like, his 3 daughters. Maybe they'll pick something up from a festival. They got May December last year. They snatched that one. I mean, there might be a year where Netflix doesn't have anything, or maybe we're being foolish and The Piano Lesson's just going to happen. I mean, I don't know. Would you put The Piano Lesson in?
It is kind of compelling. It's hard to argue against. Ron Rainey would have gotten in a year of 10, right?
It's also a pandemic year, though. Like, it wouldn't have gotten in last year.
No, but this year's not last year.
Well, we don't know what this year is. I think that's kind of the thing. It's a little bit dependent on competition for this one. It's definitely gonna be like, you know, number 8 or lower, right? We kind of agree on that.
Yeah.
I think it matters that we think Samuel L. Jackson's winning. That might even be enough to shove it in there. I did think about having Mother Mary in. The new David Lowery film, described as an epic pop melodrama with music by Charlie XCX And it's about a famous pop star who forms a relationship with a fashion designer.
Well, a fictional pop star.
Yeah, I know it's kind of fictional pop star.
Like Tar.
You have Anne Hathaway and Michaela Cole in the lead roles. I don't know who'd be lead. I don't know who'd be supporting.
Well, probably Anne Hathaway is the pop star and Michaela Cole is the fashion designer, and which also makes me think, there's some costumes here.
Contemporary, though. Contemporary.
But these two lead performances I'm really excited about. I think this film will be really good. I was ready to say, especially given that it's like about a pop star and that it's a melodrama, that this would be a better chance than David Lowery has gotten than ever before to get a film into the Oscars. And his filmography is really impressive. I love A Ghost Story and The Green Knight. And looking ahead of the year, I can't help but think that this is one of the most exciting projects and one of the films I'm looking forward to the most, and I think might be the best.
Absolutely. Despite
me having this in my top 10 for a while and thinking, okay, this is the film I'm going to take a chance on. I look back at David Lowery's filmography, and everything from Pete's Dragon to The Green Knight has less than a 7 on IMDb. Like, audiences don't vibe with David Lowery. I feel like that's a problem for the Oscars.
Well, I think this movie seems less surreal than like A Ghost Story and The Green Knight. And Anne Hathaway, that's an actress who's very palatable for people and who's been nominated before. I think Twitter's going to eat this movie whole.
They're going to vor it.
It's too much optimism and hope dicting for me to put it in, but I have like a big eye out for it.
The actors are a thing, I think, and
the acting is going to be great. It's going to be.
It does seem like it will be more popular given like the soundtrack than other of David Lowery's films. And also, like you said, it's not a surreal film.
I think it's going to be a really buzzy movie though. Like I think that if it happens to premiere at Venice, it's going to be one of people's most like anticipated.
Yeah,
but maybe it's like I don't know, Bones and All or something, where it's just like okay, like the Oscars are just not that into it. It's a young people movie.
It's hard to tell. It's really hard to tell. I don't know if I
think people should take it more seriously than I've been seeing, though. And maybe Anne Hathaway gets nominated, like no matter what, honestly. Well, let's talk about Megalopolis.
Megalopolis is the wild card of the goddamn century, honestly.
It's self-financed, so the producers...
Self-financed, $100 million. Not the producers. No, Francis Ford Coppola.
No, I mean, there's no producers who got a say in this movie. So it's either, like, unhinged and people are going to be like... Buddy, like, I was rooting for you, but, like, I don't know what you did. Like, I don't know about that. Or it's going to be like, holy shit, like, he's fucking back. Like, he fucking stuck it to everybody by funding this movie himself and, like, killing it.
And the narrative of, like, self-funding your movie, your entire savings behind it because you believe in it and then it turning out well, it'd be so delicious if that happened.
And we're all rooting for it really, really hard, but I just think there's a world where there's like some disappointment because Francis Ford Coppola, over the years, we haven't seen him do anything, approaching greatness in a while.
When was the last film that was very...
The Godfather Part 3, technically, was like the last film that he really got like some nominations for. Since the 2000s,
barely... The Rainmaker, people
barely anybody's seen what he's done.
Yeah, there's some films like Twixt and Tetro that he's made, and some people like those, but... They're very out there and not in the mainstream. You probably haven't even heard of them.
So this could just be an example of a filmmaker who's just past their prime and...
No.
I don't know.
No. Whatever the fate of Megalopolis is, I don't think it's going to be, he's past his prime. I think it's going to be like a Bardo, where the vision is just so huge and uncontained that... People admire the effort and the ambition, but they just didn't quite like get there. Sometimes when you shoot for the stars, you miss a little bit, or you're just trying to aim too high, and people aren't like gonna get it, or they're not gonna think what you think about it.
It's about an architect who wants to rebuild New York City as a utopia following a devastating disaster.
It's very much
lots of politics. There's fantasy. There's maybe a little bit of sci-fi.
It's a total like fantasy.
The costumes are nutty. The production design is going to be a lot.
Nutty.
The cast
you can see
is
the
huge.
set photos. It's nutty.
Everybody in Hollywood is working on this film, so this could, like, if this is successful, this gets SAG Ensemble and all that. You look at some screenshots and you see Shia LaBeouf, and you're like, what the hell's going on here? I don't know what we're getting here. Like, I really don't know what we're getting here.
We just don't know. But we do have an image from it. We have that image of just the fallen statue.
Yeah, which looks, if I'm being honest, it looks a little murky. I don't know what's going on.
But also, $120 million is a lot, and you can make a film that looks huge for that amount of money. So it's hard to imagine the film not being anything. Like, it's going to be something.
Yeah.
And people are so excited for it. Like, everyone wants this film to be great. Everyone wants the return of Francis Ford Coppola. Like, we want to see if he can give us another huge epic film, because he's known for epic films. Like, Apocalypse Now is an insane feat.
It also doesn't have a distributor, so we have to see who,
I also don't think the film will make money. Like, it just doesn't sound like a film that will make money.
Just think about it this way. Like, are we in the world where this movie gets, like, a really solid, like, oh, everybody agrees, letterbox curve where it's, like, 3.8 or above now? Like, we are in the world where this is going to get like a 3.3. It's going to be like totally scattered, maybe like a 3.1. A very old copy of the script exists, and maybe we shouldn't judge it off of that because it's very old, but like you can read it if you want to. I read like segments of it. I've seen a couple reactions to the script saying it's like kind of like clunky. It's like, what are you doing, man? It seems like there's a lot of characters in it, and it's just like, there's the guy who's trying to rebuild the city, and there's like the mayor, and there's like the mayor's daughter, and there's like the billionaire who's got like a lot of influence. Like, there's just a lot. Sounds like it's going to be very political and talky. Like, I just don't know. Kinds of Kindness is probably the movie we've held off from talking about the longest here, that I've had most people have in the top 10.
It's number 6 in the app right now, so a lot of people are expecting that Kindness of Kindness is going to get nominated. It's Yorgos Lanthimos and Emma Stone's in it, all right?
So at this point, it's hard to deny, right?
I get that, like, on paper, Yorgos Lanthimos, they just did the favorite together, and Emma Stone just won an Oscar, and like Poor Things was the runner-up for Best Picture. Like, let's be honest, I don't think so, for a couple of really solid reasons that I think will at least get people to think that this is a question mark. When's
this movie coming out? When did we just learn that this movie is coming out? In June,
Poor Things, we had a whole fiasco around. Oh my god, it's coming out in September before the festival.
Yeah, that was silly. That was silly. I agree.
That was a fiasco. And so, but the real thing here is that Kinds of Kindness is about 3 different stories. It's an anthology film, and the actors in it are in each of the films, I believe, each of the segments,
playing different characters.
Right there, I'm like checked out. Like, that's way too weird.
It's a plus though that they are in all the stories though. I think the Oscars want to see like one story that's just building off of itself the whole time. They've never nominated an anthology film, and something like Babel doesn't count. That's not an anthology film. That's one story told from different perspectives. It's not the same thing, and they cut back and forth between them. It's not the same.
Yeah, and they culminate in something.
Chapter 1. Chapter 2, like when I am watching this movie for the first time and I see Chapter 2 happen, and then the story 1 is just gone, I'm gonna be like, this won't get not. Like, it's just gonna feel like that's not Oscars.
I think it will be very fun, and it will be a back to like Yorgos Lanthimos's very dark comedies, like those black comedies that he made before. I mean, The Favorite was pretty dark, but like let's exclude The Favorite and Poor Things from that, because Yorgos Lanthimos' films that have gotten nominated have been in collaboration with Tony McNamara as a writer. Those films have been like higher production value, period set, I suppose you could say, for Poor Things. Those films just felt different from Killing of a Sacred Deer and The Lobster. In this film, the writers are Yorgos Lanthimos, who didn't write The Poor Things, who didn't write The Favorite. When he writes his movies, they're pretty fucking weird. And his collaborator, Ethemus Philippou, and they did Killing of a Sacred Deer, they did The Lobster, they did Dogtooth. That's more like the kind of film we're gonna get. If you want to think about what kind of film this is gonna be, you have to look at The Lobster and Killing of a Sacred Deer, really. I think it's gonna be much more like those, and it's not a lavish period thing.
It's not a period
If you look
thing.
at the images from the set, like, it's not lavish. It looks a lot like Killing of a Sacred Deer.
It's contemporary set.
Yeah.
And so you can't get like as many nominations with that off the bat. The cast is freaking stacked.
The cast is stacked.
All right, like maybe it can even get SAG Ensemble, like maybe it can get screenplay. Maybe
it can get screenplay.
Score for Thomas Newman, or maybe he can win.
Thomas Newman's not attached to it anymore.
Wikipedia and IMDb both switch their composer credit to Jurgen Frendrix.
Yep.
There
was a rumor that it was Thomas Newman. Maybe he was signed on, but like I'm thinking that's not true anymore.
Yeah, I guess not. And that was almost a no-brainer nomination back there. Some people are saying, look, I just don't see any other Searchlight films, and we have to predict a Searchlight film. Searchlight must have some kind of other contender slated for the fall, or they're going to be picking up one of these other films that doesn't have distributor. I can't predict an anthology film. Yeah. You got The Supremes at Earl's All You Can Eat. Now, concerningly, this film says that it's being distributed to Hulu.
We do not know it's going to Hulu. It is a rumor, and that is it.
All right, fine.
There is no source that it's going to Hulu. There is a source that Night Bitch is going to go to Hulu at some point in the release strategy, which means that if it premiered and like got amazing reviews, and maybe they would just like put it on after a theatrical release. Like, we don't know. I don't think we should consider this that heavily into the consideration.
That's fine. I still think that...
And also, Searchlight has Kinds of Kindness and Earl's All You Can Eat and Night Bitch.
Yeah. Night Bitch is not going anywhere. That's going to be a weird
I agree
movie.
that Night Bitch is not going anywhere. So then I'm coming back to Earl's All You Can Eat, and I'm like, all right, that's something.
Yeah, unless they pick something up. Oh, they also have A Real Pain, which they might consider a top priority, honestly.
I don't know about that.
If you're looking for a Searchlight movie that's not Kinds of Kindness, you could look here. You could say Uzo Aduba, Best Actress. Ingenue Ellis is in it. It seems like it could be feel good. It's probably not going to be like the most technical movie, but it might have like a good story. You know, one of the co-writers is actually Gina Prince Bythewood. I think it could be like screenplay and maybe 1 or 2 actresses. Like that seems kind of right to me. It seems like a TIFF movie.
I'm actually excited for this movie because it's a drama about friendship. And I like dramas. And I like films that are like talky and you get to know the characters. Like I'm excited for this. The director's done mostly TV, so there's not really anything to look back on and try to compare to what this film's going to be. And I expect that the performances will be great. Like that, this seems like a film where the performances will be very good. It's just about 3 friends. They call themselves the Supremes, and they've known each other for 2 generations.
It could be funny. It could be heartfelt. It could have a tear-jerking moment or two.
Like this sounds really good to me, and I am like considering it for the top 10.
We'll see. I think that the movie will probably be good. I think critics aren't going to shit themselves over it, but we'll see if it's like just that much of an audience hit where it has to rank at TIFF.
Well, what it would need is like buzz for screenplay and actors, and then the picture would
have to rank at TIFF. So the reason that we ultimately settled on Earl's in the top 10 is 1 is because of Searchlight. 2 is that this seems like it could be a TIFF film that places. It also just seems very feel good. The book is said to have really memorable characters that stick with you, and so screenplay, acting, crowd pleaser, and Searchlight. Now here's an interesting movie. Luca Guadagnino's Queer, which I think most people kind of agree. Daniel Craig for Best Actor.
In the app, he's number 2.
Yeah.
Number 2.
Yeah. Okay, so he's playing a recovering heroin addict who is wandering around Mexico City post-World War II. He's an American expat. I think the movie seems like it's got some sophisticated themes around like the war and like some of the politics of the time. And it's also just about like loneliness, as is said from like what the book is about. The screenplay was written by Justin Kuritzkis, who, you know, we know as Celine Song's husband and the writer of Challengers. By the way, I'm not including Challengers on this list. And I don't think Zendaya is getting nominated, even though she's number 5 on your app. I don't know why people think that. Well, I think that's not happening.
It's very visible right now.
Yeah,
Challengers has trailers.
That movie's coming out in April. People
are excited for it. That's just the reason why.
A lot of people will say Best Actor or Bust, but I want to consider that we should go a little further with this movie because it is a period film. If you do have a big Best Actor player in it, and we have a great filmmaker here, very prestige film, okay? And if it's one of the best of the year, then there you have it.
It's very much a character study. So my thing about this film is, I do believe Daniel Craig, I'd probably put him in Best Actor right now because I feel like the goodwill for him is very high, and also he might have a moment where people are like, that was an amazing performance, like let's get him nominated. But just the subject of the film, like Lee is an insecure man afflicted with heroin withdrawal who is driven to pursue a young man named Allerton. It feels like very indie, dealing with obviously being queer, being addicted to drugs. Like that is the plot of the movie. It's not like, oh, and then it's an action film, or oh, and then it's this.
Moonlight won Best Picture.
I don't really see the overlap in territory between like this story and the stories that Oscars generally do.
My argument is just if it's one of the most acclaimed films of the year, it could get more than just Daniel Craig. If it has like, really high Metacritic, like, and in this year,
but even if it gets high Metacritic, I'm like, okay, well, what if it's like All of Us Strangers?
It's a prestigious film with a prestigious filmmaker.
Well, what if it's All of Us Strangers?
What if it's Tar, which is a great, character study? Because it's like a big character study movie, that we underestimated in the beginning of the year. We said, okay, Best Actress.
I don't know though. Luca Guadagnino doesn't give a shit about the Oscars, and also like he's made so many films at this point that don't appeal to that whatsoever.
Yeah, they dip their toes in the horror genre though.
We may as well like not think of it that way. It is number 11 in the app. For some reason, people are feeling it. I think it's because Luca Guadagnino directed Call Me by Your Name.
I mean, look, I've seen people overestimate Guadagnino films before. People thought Challengers was getting nominated. People thought Bosenall was getting nominated. Like
Challengers.
But those movies don't have the genre on their side. Like, this is a melancholic film. And in the Oscars,
you think that's a thing?
They let in like one of those every year.
That's why I'm saying it's like All of Us Strangers.
Sure, that's fine, but that director
and even without Ghosts, it wouldn't have gotten in the Oscars.
But I also think that we need to do a little section exploring the potential Cannes films here, and just as it happens, they're like all neon already. Okay.
Which doesn't guarantee anything because broker. Because they always acquire the film.
Actually, not always. Triangle of Sadness they always had. They always had Teton as well, which won the Palm but didn't get nominated for Best Picture. Last year, they did acquire Anatomy of a Fall. It was a bellwether for that film winning the Palm. La Chimera last year, people fucking tried. They said, this is the one. I don't think they had enough evidence. And the other thing last year is that no one was going to predict Anatomy of a Fall. Sometimes you get Drive My Car, sometimes you get Anatomy of a Fall. No one was ever going to do it. So I'm not going to jump the gun and like force myself into doing a Neon Can film if I don't see it.
But here's what we did do well last year. Right before Cannes, when we knew the lineup, goodbye again, we said, what are we, we're just going to take a pot shot. I don't even know if that's the right way to use that. And we're going to see what film out of the lineup we're going to take a swing at.
Makes the most sense.
And we decided that Zone of Interest made the most sense. And I think we like put it in the top 10 because of that. And this was like the predictions before Cannes. And like we, you know, so we actually did do something interesting. I'm trying to deduce what the Cannes film
We didn't get it this early in the year though, unfortunately. We have a few films here. One of them that people is predicting is Bird. This is A24. Yeah. This is Andrea Arnold. Very likely Cannes contender. Maybe it's Venice. Yeah. I don't know.
Director of Fish Tank and
director of American Honey.
American Honey.
This film looks a lot like American Honey to me.
Yeah.
It's about like, you know, scrappy, like lower class youth from the image. You know, Barry Keoghan's he's riding a scooter around with his shirt off. He's got a lot of tattoos. Like it looks very scrappy. Yeah. All right, and so I think that's very similar to American Honey, and that's why
very indie energy.
That's why, even though, like, yes, I understand Andrea Arnold, like, it's time, best director, whatever. I can't quite get there.
The cast is elevated though.
Franz Rogowski's in it too.
Yeah,
which is awesome.
But Barry Keoghan in the lead is really
we don't know that he's
good.
the lead. There's another actor in it who might be the lead.
Really?
Yeah.
You think so?
Yeah.
Well, he's at least a co-lead now.
Yeah, it would be close to it. You can maybe get him in there. We also don't have a plot for this movie. We just have, like, images. It's one of those things where I just think it's a bit of a reach to just, you know, judge it on the director alone, when I think what we've seen from the movie shows it'll probably be similar to, like, other stuff that we've seen already that didn't.
I mean, even if you did judge it from the director alone, like, if she's really committed to making this kind of film, like...
It would have to be, you know, 90 on Metacritic type of thing or whatever.
Yeah, and it's A24.
I'm open to that one.
It seems like it's one of the more exciting films this year.
Sean Baker is a film, Honora.
This is Indie Spirit Best Actress.
Oh yeah, Mikey Madison.
Absolutely.
For sure. Red Rocket.
Beyond that, wouldn't have confidence predicting it for anything else because Sean Baker's films, like he's at the point where he could get a celebrity to be in his films and he doesn't want to. I think he just genuinely likes working with actors who haven't done a lot of stuff or like new.
There's no Willem Dafoe in here, let's just say that.
Like it's gonna be a very daring performance.
It's a comedy about a sex worker shot in New York and Las Vegas, all right? Yeah. So there is nothing about this that is Oscar-y.
No,
all right? Nothing about it.
But a very exciting film.
Obviously Sean Baker is one of our most exciting. Then you have Emmanuel. This is from Audrey Duan, who did Happening. Which, you know, to be fair, it does star Noemi Merlan, who is not like a random actress by any means.
Oh yeah, no, she's
Naomi Watts is in it too. Naomi Watts is in it, and it may be in English. Another plus for the film. It says, follows a woman in the series of erotic fantasies that she entertains. All right? First of all, like, you know, let's agree, not Oscar-y yet, but we'll keep sniffing. The book that this is based on was very controversial. A lot of people didn't know how to feel about it. Extremely explicit. This will probably be NC-17. They made a movie adaptation of that book a while ago, and people were very divided on it, and even, like it doesn't even have that good reviews. I mean, this is probably going to be a good movie. Like,
it'll be very interesting. But Audrey Duan too. Like, if I think about Happening from a filmmaking standpoint, from a storytelling standpoint, like the film was ambitious,
also very uncomfortable.
Yeah,
I think it's going to be the same.
I don't think it makes sense for her to move from that to like an Oscar thing, and that is in no way an insult. I like when filmmakers are on the outside of it; they just know what kind of films they want to make and they make them. But that's what's happening here. I really think, especially with the subject. Like, there's just I feel like no way the Oscars would touch it.
I think it's going to be very in your face and provocative, and that's also based on her last film. I think if you're trying to predict this, you're trying to predict La Chimera last year. Paolo Sorrentino's new film with Gary Oldman in it. That might be Cannes. Yeah. But I don't think, just from what I've seen of him, I think he's a little too quirky for the Oscars. It says it's a drama fantasy. I like the pairing of Gary Oldman and Paolo Sorrentino, though. I like that pairing. Weirdly, the movie I land on that I think actually maybe makes the most sense, that could go to Cannes and be a big thing, is called The End. The director did The Act of Killing and The Look of Silence. Yeah. Act of Killing, consider one of the great documentaries probably of all time at this point. He has not done a feature film, but it is a golden age style musical about the last human family with Tilda Swinton, George Mackay, and Michael Shannon.
Yeah. So English language movie.
You have actors who people recognize. Where's Tilda Swinton's Oscar nomination? Where is Tilda Swinton's Oscar nomination? We need to get this to happen. It'll probably happen next year, the Almodovar, but maybe this year, honestly.
And then Michael Shannon would be like the patriarch of the family, like probably lead, but definitely Tilda Swinton lead. So the Wikipedia is, a wealthy family lives in an underground bunker 2 decades after the end of the world, which they directly contributed to. So this would be like, definitely skewering the rich.
A Triangle of Sadness, perhaps, which, that movie, if there's one thing you could say about it, it's that maybe the subject matter has, people wanted to see that kind of thing. And also, look, who's the cinematographer? It's the guy who did Andrei Zvyagintsev films, which includes The Return and Leviathan. Amazing looking film. So we have a very good cinematographer here as well. Golden Age style musical. The musical numbers are probably going to be very sarcastic, but I think there's something to, that bringing in those stylistic elements that maybe helps this movie as well. And I think ultimately it's the satire to me that I think could be interesting. Although we could end up with a movie that is just another, Annette Round 2.
Right.
Bizarre musical.
There just aren't a lot of musicals that make it into the Oscars that aren't like, if you think outside of like Les Mis and La La Land, those are the
It'd be
only
odd.
two
It'd be very odd. I mean, we have Joker also, which is...
A Star is Born was... I would say A Star is Born is a musical.
I also look at the cast and I'm like, okay, this is in English too. Like, Neon is an interesting movie for them to just have, right? Like, it's interesting that they have it. I don't know what to take away from the fact that the director is a documentarian. Like, we've seen that not translate a lot. We also have that with, Ramel Ross is here with the Nickel Boys. The last time this happened was James Marsh Theory of Everything.
The documentarians from Free Solo went and did
Naiad last year, which was, moderately successful, wasn't it?
The fact that Joshua Oppenheimer is doing this makes me really excited. That's the part of the film that I'm most excited about, to see the director of Act of Killing, which I thought was masterpiece, take a step up in their career.
And do an ambitious movie. Like an odd movie no one would have seen
Working
this coming.
with Tilda Swinton. I'm so excited for
also, don't you think Tilda Swinton could get Best Actress, considering that this is a musical?
Or it's just something that's too weird and not palatable.
Right. It could, that's the thing, is it might be fucking weird. Out of all the Neon or A24 Cannes films that I have on my radar, this is the one that I would make that I can make the best case for.
You wouldn't mention any other Cannes films?
I mean,
we just
I'm
don't know
excited for Limonov, The Ballad of Eddie, which is from Kirill Serebrennikov. His last movie wasn't great, but it was fucking well made. And Ben Whishaw, I think he's going to give a hell of a lead performance, but it's probably going to be Bizarro. I can't think of that many other movies that I would even kind of have on the radar in terms of Cannes and Oscar at the same time. And I've looked around. I've shopped around.
I think we have to say that Cannes going to produce something this year.
Especially this year.
It would just be too scarce.
Last year there were 2 films that were from Cannes. We could talk about Furiosa. In contrast to Joker, I think the problem here could be that it is looking to be good in all the exact same ways as Mad Max Fury Road. The biggest difference, it seems, is that Furiosa takes place over the span of several years, whereas Mad Max was a few days. So that's a little bit different. But look, it's looking to deliver on the same action thrills, the same colorful visuals that burn into your brain, the fast-paced editing, the bonkers just nature of everything. It's hard to imagine that it's gonna be as good. Yeah. It may very well live up, but that doesn't mean that people will be as excited, because Mad Max is an example of a lightning in a bottle film.
Yeah.
And I think people got excited because they were like, holy shit, I feel like I haven't seen something like this. And this is something that we've seen, and we're hoping it will live up. That's the best it can do.
Yeah, I can't see it being better, right? There just doesn't seem to be a scenario where this is better than Mad Max Fury Road because of how well liked that movie is. From the trailer, I don't really see it being better either. I look at the trailer for Mad Max Fury Road and I see a film that looks a little bit more exciting than this one. And the main thing I'm excited for here is like that Chris Hemsworth is doing something wacky.
Chris Hemsworth looks very good, and if the movie's in Best Picture, I actually think he could be a supporting actor contender, and I think we should consider that. But if the movie was nominated for Best Picture, I think it would get score this time around, which could be cool as well, because the first one kind of got ignored a bit.
I just have a harder time seeing the Furiosa film as an Oscar contender
outside of text, because it's going to get some text.
Yeah, I think
clearly
text.
Visual effects.
But I just feel like it's not going to get as good of reviews, and that alone will just like kind of kill it. For like a Best Picture nomination.
Yeah, and we have a lot of sequels this year. You got to make some cuts.
I feel like a sequel has to be better.
Yeah,
and it's just going to be too hard to top.
I want to talk about Here, which is Sony Pictures releasing. A lot of people are completely ignoring this film, and their reasoning is probably that it's Robert Zemeckis. He is not hot off of Pinocchio or Welcome to Marwen. He had Flight, he had The Walk, those were pretty good. But, he's never been nominated outside of Forrest Gump. But this movie is really a Forrest Gump reunion, isn't it? You have Tom Hanks back, you have Robin Wright back, you have the same composer, and you have the little secret weapon, the bullet in the chamber, as no one would say. Eric Roth. If you don't know who Eric Roth is, he is on a hot streak of everything he writes or produces gets nominated for Best Picture. Killers of the Flower Moon, Dune Part 1, Dune Part 2. He did The Insider, he did Benjamin Button, he did Forrest Gump, he did Star is Born. This man is like a good luck charm for your movie if he's writing it. This movie is based off of a graphic novel that is about one location in one room over the course of hundreds of years, and you kind of just watch like different characters who inhabit it. So it's high concept. There was one test screening reaction that seemed very positive, and they compared it to like movies like Big Fish or Life of Pi. Visually stunning, sort of high concept, but feel good and palatable films that would come out like a little bit earlier in our lives.
A lot of visual effects.
Yeah, well, they have de-aging on the actors, which apparently was done with AI during the shoot and not in post-production. So we'll see if they even want to bite on that or not. Man. Apparently, the de-aging looks good. And the movie seems Oscar-y, and they gave a lot of emotional scenes to Robin Wright. And some of the supporting performances are good, too. That was all in the reaction. That is just one reaction that we should take with a grain of salt. We tried to predict Hillbilly Elegy in 13 Lives, and I think that Ron Howard's kind of in a very similar position as, like, Robert Zemeckis. And so maybe this is, like, pretty ill-advised. Like, maybe we should keep it out of the top 10 just because I feel like this is something I would do that I shouldn't do. But I think there's a lot going for this movie that we may be overlooking, and I don't see a lot of people talking about this movie at all, and I think it is in my top 15. The concept is like, it definitely seems like it could go wrong or like not work for everybody, but I think Robert Zemeckis will have a way of making it palatable and entertaining. Very unclear how it's going to be shot.
It gives me Cloud Atlas red flag, though. It gives me...
You could say that about Megalopolis.
Too ambitious. And I did. Like, this movie is going to take place from like the womb to tomb of the universe or something.
Well, it's probably mostly going to be focused on like a couple families.
It's going to have like future and it's going to have like past.
I don't know how critics are going to feel about the movie. I think what's more important is like, is this movie palatable for people, and will they think that it changed their lives to watch it? Will they be like so impressed and moved?
I think some people will love it. I'm very curious how Zemeckis will do it, like how he'll shoot it.
I just want to make a good case for it. That's all I want to do.
There's a pretty good case for it. I mean, can you argue against it?
Yeah, Robert Zemeckis.
Kind of a wild card. Maybe Megalopolis is no longer the biggest wild card of the year, and it's here. Another film we have to keep our eye out on is Maria. This is an extremely good bet for a Best Actress nomination.
Oh, yeah.
For Angelina Jolie.
Oh, yeah.
Playing Maria Callas. In her last days living in France, she is, an opera singer? This is Pablo Larraín, okay? This is the third film in what will now be known as the Sad Woman trilogy, I suppose, which includes Jackie.
Sad Famous Woman,
of course. Jackie, Spencer, Maria. Say it with me. It's very simple.
And even Spencer, which people doubted for a nomination.
Yeah, which got in. Really suffered from backlash, and it still got in for Best Actress. So.
And this is different because it's Angelina Jolie, who's already won an Oscar.
Yeah.
And this is just like, she is just getting nominated. You have to have her in your Best Actress 5. You could have her at number 1 if you want to.
Right,
that's fine. You can do that. It'll be a hot Venice ticket, I'm sure, this year. It's going to be very sad. She's going to be very tormented.
And also, remember when we saw the Spencer trailer? Like, I know that film got 1 nomination, but when we saw the trailer, everyone was like, holy shit, maybe this film's going to get like 10 nominations. And even when it came out, we thought, man, this thing might get 10 nominations.
Just like Jackie.
I know.
It happened the same way.
When the trailer comes out and when it gets good reviews, you're going to have it in like the top 15 somewhere. You're going to be like, all right, fine. Maria is like a big deal. It looks immaculate. And who's period detail is amazing. It's going to get costumes. It's going to get makeup. It's going to get production design. It's going to get score.
And who's shooting?
Okay, sure. And then it would take like a Spencer level of backlash to take it down. And you know, it probably won't be as controversial as Spencer.
I think it won't be. Stephen Knight is also writing it, who wrote Spencer. The cinematographer is Edward Lockman. He did Carol, Far From Heaven, and El Conde.
Well, we know that. Oh, yeah, that's pretty
So
big.
I think this is actually a better case for cinematography because of the name behind it than even his other two films. Apparently, the production designer and Pablo Larraín were working on like making some surreal musical sequences. So like Spencer, it'll have
she's a singer.
Surreal, but it's like the movie takes place in her final days where she's just hanging out in her friend's apartment. I don't think she's like on tour.
Yeah.
So there's something
flashbacks.
surreal to it. I think it'll either be flashbacks or like memory. It'll be a memory piece.
The thing with Pablo Larraín's films is they're not conventional, right? Jackie was far from conventional in what you'd expect from a biopic about the wife of John F. Kennedy. Of course, you'd expect a tragic story, but something so deeply internal and deeply melancholic and just upsetting. A very upsetting movie. And also very artistic. And Spencer was just like a total artistic vision. You know, he's very not concerned with making the period drama biopic films that we all expect. And, you know, I think he is one of few filmmakers who is actually keeping the biopic alive and making me not skeptical about it because I really like what he did with those films. I'm really excited that the actor Haluk Bilginer from Winter Sleep is in this film as well because he gave an incredible performance there, and I think he will have a substantial role in this film. I mean, the best thing here to do, like especially given that this is the third in a trilogy of films, is to look at the past films and say, okay, this is going to get those nominations, right? I would even say it'll probably get tech nominations because Spencer got bumped out of those categories like probably unfairly.
Spencer was a 90s movie though, so it wasn't even like as period though,
yeah,
you know. This movie I think has a maybe a better shot at makeup and costumes and cinematography
and production design, and it's getting Best Actress. Okay, enough. There's no negotiating. Angelina Jolie is getting Best Actress for this. And she might even win critic awards. Like that's the kind of thing that it will be. Is a performance that critics eat up. The critics were giving Natalie Portman all the awards. They were giving Kristen Stewart all the awards, and then the industry awards were like, no, we go a different direction, actually.
Yeah. There is a world, though, where, like, this actually isn't
the best
freaking people out as much as his other movies, and it is Best Picture.
If it just has a little bit of a happier ending or something, it's definitely one of the more high-profile Oscar films that we have here.
Yeah, and look, Pablo Larraín, like, Best Director, we can make it happen, maybe. Hard Truths. This is the new Mike Leigh film, which is actually in production right now, but they've released an image for it, and it seems like they might be building up to a release this year. And that could make sense. Like, it's probably not a complicated movie in terms of post-production. Mike Leigh seems to be making a return to domestic drama. This stars Marianne Jean-Baptiste, who got nominated for supporting actress for Secrets and Lies. This reunion could result in her getting a Best Actress nomination.
Yep.
Because we know Mike Leigh, his films can get acting nominations. They're really well written.
Yep.
So, screenplay, actress, potential nominations for it. Maybe there's a supporting person in there who's, you know, we don't really know yet, but like we'll find out. The biggest problem with the movie is that it is Bleecker Street. I think if it's one of the best movies of the year and it's like considered up there with Mike Leigh's best, I think it can overcome that. He's got Dick Pope doing the cinematography.
Sure.
He's got the guy who composed Mr. Turner got nominated for that.
And we may be thinking, okay, well, Mike Leigh, his last film was Peterloo. That was sort of an anomaly. I mean, most of his other films got Oscar nominated in some way. And none of them have been bad. Mr. Turner was close to Best Actor, didn't land there, but got tech nominations. And his other films got like either screenplay or some performance got nominated. It would be very consistent for him and very on par for this to get either screenplay or actress or both. And if this did get Best Picture, it would be like, it would have to be one of his very best films. Another Year got a lone screenplay nomination. He gets lone screenplay nominated sometimes.
I think that this is very worth considering for Best Picture just because it could get actress and screenplay. Let's keep going here. Nosferatu. I don't think so, but I'll give it the a good argument. I'll make a good case for it. It is coming out on Christmas. You can envision makeup, maybe costumes, maybe cinematography, maybe production design, maybe it's tragedy of Macbeth. Looking. It's paying homage to some very interesting older styles of filmmaking that maybe some of the branches could appreciate. The fact that it's Robert Eggers, though, like, I cannot get past that. And the fact that it's a horror movie and a remake, like what are we doing with people predicting this? Like honestly.
I think they're just really excited about it, and people love Robert Eggers.
They should. And his brothers are doing a movie this year as well. It's a remake of Nosferatu. Like, it's a monster movie.
He's too, for me, and thinking that this is going to be an Oscar movie, like, totally aside from me thinking that this sounds awesome and that he's the person to make Nosferatu.
Which he is.
I don't get a whiff of sense that he is going to make an awards film. This is going to be some bonkers horror movie, gothic shit.
The Northman was like originally going to come out in like December, right? And then they pushed it.
We were considering Northman for Oscars, and
Northman wasn't even close.
It wasn't even close.
I just don't think that this is going to happen. And it's also not black and white. So even in cinematography, I wouldn't predict it for cinematography because it is not in black and white.
If it was in black and white, we could talk.
While it will get acclaim when it premieres at Venice or whatever it does, it's not going to be like, oh, this is a 90 on Metacritic, this is Eggers' best film. Like, it's not going to be like that. I won't be predicting Eggers for Oscars anytime soon.
Unless he, like, does a 180. And I don't think he should. I think he's where he should be.
You have Juror Number 2 from Clint Eastwood, which I would not entirely dismiss. Because this is a courtroom drama. It has a very good cast. I know some people are ready to say, like, Clint Eastwood's just done forever or whatever. But the screenplay might be very good. And maybe Clint Eastwood's kind of throwing it back to, like, you know, a good old-fashioned courtroom drama, 12 Angry Men, just very, very pleasing. Maybe not the most acclaimed movie of the year, but maybe it's just classic, like, you know, solid, like, addictive movie making. You know what I mean? Might be, like, a really, like, watchable film. It's about a man who's a juror on a murder trial who finds out that he's more connected with the case than, you know, he thought he was. And so he has like a moral dilemma about what to do about this. It's the same cinematographer as Eastwood's, you know, recent film, so it's going to be gray looking. It'll probably be well acted. So that's what I can say about it, really. Toni Collette might get nominated. I mean, Kathy Bates got nominated for Richard Jewell, so.
J.K. Simmons is also in it.
Yeah. Gladiator II. I wouldn't, like, completely dismiss this, but I'm going to dismiss it a little bit. Like, so Ridley Scott, he had The Martian, but, like, amidst a sea of not being successful, and last year Napoleon got 3 nominations, but it was not close to Best Picture, no matter, you know, what people say, and it wasn't that well liked. The Last Duel was a major flop. House of Gucci was financially successful, but not well liked either. So Ridley Scott has not been on his A game, and he seems to kind of be making movies that feel like they maybe back in the day could have been Oscar contenders, but when they come out now, they're just feeling a little stale. I just think that Gladiator 2 will probably also just feel a little bit like stale. Be like, yeah, this is a sequel.
The writer of Napoleon is writing Gladiator 2.
Wow, amazing.
Now, they did write All the Money in the World, which was not a hated movie. But when I watched Napoleon, I was like, the screenplay is what is not here.
You have Paul Mescal, you have Denzel Washington, you have Pedro Pascal. The cast is sort of interesting.
Denzel Washington is said to be a villain too, and some people are trying to predict him for supporting actor.
Yeah, I would chill.
Which I don't like. I don't hate it, but
I would chill.
It's going to be a big movie. I mean, the fact that he's coming off of Napoleon, we know that Ridley Scott, in his old age, is no less interested in creating an absolutely epic.
Oh, well, that's the thing. I think that at this point, you may have to predict this for costumes and production design. And,
oh yeah.
So you
have to consider this in text.
And maybe
you have to.
Yeah, you do. You know, as far as going above the line, you know, maybe this movie is a little too actiony for the Oscars at this point. May as well talk about Horizon: An American Saga. I'll tell you this. If this was one film, I would be considering it much more.
Yeah.
This movie seems to have old Hollywood charm, the kind that people are missing nowadays, the kind that makes people say Top Gun Maverick is the greatest movie of all time.
It's pure nostalgia for like old American westerns. This is a Kevin Costner helmed film about the American West. He's just so dedicated to making these depictions of the American West that, you know, Yellowstone, he decided that wasn't enough. He had to go back to the movies with a 2-part series. I think they're released within like 3 or 4 weeks of one another.
They're like a month and a half apart.
You know, the trailer actually looked like very beautiful.
The cinematography looks very good.
Yeah, and the score was very weepy.
Yeah.
It just had like a very cozy feeling to it.
It looked a little cheesy.
Yeah.
It was funny when the kid was like, I'm going to be with Dad. But it was also like, I can see why most people won't care about that and they'll just love it and they'll eat it up. I think the tricky thing about it is that it's 2 parts and therefore you can't just nominate the whole thing. You have to pick one. Most likely what would probably happen is the second film's better and so we'll nominate the second film as a way of honoring all of them. It'd be weird if the first film was better, and so they had to feel like they had to nominate the first one. But I feel like if the first one was better than the second, people would feel a little just underwhelmed with the whole project.
There's no way the first will be better than the second.
Yeah, so I think that it's really part 2 that you'd have to predict.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird calculation you have to make where you're like, okay, well, only one film would be campaigned for Oscars, right? So we'd have to go with part 2.
It's a bit risky,
but
too.
But we'd also
overall
be sort of nominating the film over, like, the two of them at once, but, like, through one film.
Yeah.
That's why I feel like this is not really trying to do Oscars. The audience is going to be driven by conservative people. And that is what it's trying to do. And I think, like, it wants those, like, flyover states to like go out and see the movie and not just like be appealing to metropolitan areas. I don't know how like the discourse is going to shape up because I know that people like to run in opposite directions. So if conservative people like it, liberal people will be like, no, it sucks.
That's true, but the trailer didn't make this happen at all.
You know, we have examples of like Top Gun Maverick or Hacksaw Ridge, like stories about, you know, American heroes. Top Gun Maverick's not like based on something real, but it feels like an American hero story. And those films can do well. Like those can work on everybody.
I think there's a fair chance that I could get like cinematography or score, production design, costumes. Yeah, like it's a big like
we don't know
nice
how big
looking movie.
People are gonna go see it.
I wouldn't dismiss the possibility.
2 parts too, like right out of the gate, huge bet.
But at the same time,
I'm kind of looking forward to
interesting
seeing it.
success story. You have The Brutalist, which no one seems to be talking about, and I think it's because it's a total wild card. This is from Brady Corbett. It's like his follow-up to Vox Lux. We've been tracking this movie for like 3 years. It has a completely different cast than what we thought it was going to have. It is now in post-production, and the cast is Adrian Brody, Felicity Jones, Guy Pearce. But, you know, Brady Corbett, like Vox Lux, interesting filmmaker. This is Beatty in terms of its subject matter.
Too interesting.
A visionary architect and his wife flee post-war Europe in 1947 to rebuild their legacy and witness the birth of modern America. And their lives are forever changed by a mysterious and wealthy client. It's kind of an Oscar bait type of movie, but what's interesting is that you have the flair of an interesting filmmaker who's trying to do weird things. So this is actually like, I think it's a good combination. I don't know what to say about it. Like I can't predict it right now. I just think it's worth, you know, having an eye out for. It takes place around World War II.
Sure.
The actor is kind of a wild card as well. This is Neon produced. It is the director of Anomalisa, who's not Charlie Kaufman, co-directed that film.
It is based on a novel. I think the novel is very heady. People reviewing it were saying they need it, you know, that it benefits from multiple reads and that it's very deep. And very psychological.
Andre Holland is in the lead.
Yeah, Andre Holland might give a really good performance.
It may be very meaty, and people may want him to get nominated for Best Actor. That is possible.
But I think the film is going to err on the side of intellectual, and so I don't know if it's going to become mainstream.
Yeah, I think so. And it's also a crime and a mystery, which are both kind of red flags, especially when put together. Gemma Chan is in it too.
It's a noir. It's probably not quite like other things we've seen. I'm digging it. Like, I really want to see it.
Go over a couple movies that we've seen. His Three Daughters from Netflix. They picked this up at TIFF last year. It could be going for an acting nom or two. It's a little bit difficult with the category placements because it's kind of a 3-lead film, but like Natasha Lyonne, holy shit. Yeah. My God, like I think she's
clearly the standout.
I really want them to push her in supporting because I feel like she's win-worthy. I don't know if like they would put her in supporting and then they're gonna try to do like Carrie Coon in lead, or if they're gonna bother with the other actors. Like I don't know what they do. I really don't know.
I think it's her or bust though. That's the problem I have with the movie. I can't even.
Well,
really
the screenplay is great.
Yeah,
it's a tearjerker.
I
like what if the movie has another life that you didn't see coming at TIFF? Is my question.
I don't know.
Like just as a hypothetical, I think probably not. I think you're probably right that like it's probably supporting actress or bust, and it'll probably be one of those annoying things where like even though she's so good, nothing comes out of it.
Yeah, because critics have seen it, but then like other people just don't get around to it or something. It's also kind of like a play. It takes place in one apartment. It's very well made.
Dee Dee, which we saw at Sundance, which won Sundance. Some people think that's enough to predict the movie. I think the problem with Dee Dee is that it is way too coming of age. It's very slice of life coming of age.
Yeah, I don't think Dee Dee is big enough to get to the Oscars. I just don't think so. Even the mother performance from Joan Chen, I love it, but it's not as much as like the mother from Minari. I know people are thinking that, so I'm just going to say it.
She's like number 2 right now on your app.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to go there. She's not in it quite as much. Like she's in it more in the end. It's more low key. Like I really like her portrayal of the mother in this, but the acting is more grounded and realistic.
It's more 8th grade.
I don't think it's going to be.
It's more 8th grade than it is Minari or whatever.
That's a good way to put it.
Screenplay also just... I don't know, like it's just very much about like the 8th grade experience.
Yeah.
A Real Pain is also one of the big Sundance movies that some people think, has a shot somewhere. I'm seeing people think that Kieran Culkin will go supporting, and I kind of think that would be an annoying fraud case, but I understand why maybe they would do it anyway, because to me that's a very co-lead movie, and he probably has more dialogue.
It's certainly a two-hander, and he could easily be campaign and lead.
It just feels like a lead performance.
You come away from the movie thinking about his performance more than maybe anything else from the movie.
This is Searchlight, and if Kinds of Kindness isn't a thing, if Earls or whatever is just not as much of a thing, maybe they push it hard enough where like, in most worlds, I think that this movie wouldn't get any nominations, but maybe with the right push, with Kieran Culkin, kind of leading the way, he can get into his category, whatever that may be, and maybe the screenplay.
I think they'd have to push him in lead actor to make it feel bigger. I think it could be like Sound of Metal. That movie got huge Best Actor buzz, and then screenplay followed, and then Best Picture followed.
Yeah, I think the problem, though, is like, even on Letterboxd, I see that it is a bit hard for people, it seems, to get over like that 8 out of 10 hump, which I don't think it would be Best Picture for that reason. I would consider it a little more than Dee Dee.
The thing about A Real Pain that makes me consider, like more than Dee Dee, is some people seem to connect very deeply with it. And there is an effort to connect with a Jewish audience here, because this film is a Jewish story. The film is really good. It's very well made. While we're on the topic of Sundance, I Saw the TV Glow. It was our favorite movie there. It won't touch the Oscars because it is simply too weird.
It is much too weird.
But it's an excellent movie, and I just wanted to shout it out because it is coming out pretty soon. Exhibiting Forgiveness, we also saw at Sundance, and there are 3 performances here which I think are like Oscar nomination worthy. Andre Holland in lead, John Earl Jelks in supporting, and Angelina Ellis-Taylor in supporting. I think the reviews and the reactions aren't quite there with Exhibiting Forgiveness.
Hitman for Netflix, some people think maybe this can be a bigger thing. I don't think it's going to be. I think it'll get no nominations. I guess there's a world where it gets Best Actor or Best Screenplay, but I don't think so. I think it's too much of a comedy. I think it's too light and breezy for the Oscars. We Live in Time is an A24 film that a lot of people seem to be taking very seriously. It's a romance between Andrew Garfield and Florence Pugh, and it's directed by John Crowley, who did Brooklyn and The Goldfinch, which we mentioned earlier as a big Oscar flop. Now, I think that John Crowley may very well end up just being like a one-hit wonder with the Oscars. This movie being a romance called We Live in Time just sounds very like young adult to me. And even the writer, like his last film, it kind of confirms what I think the movie's going to be. And I don't think it's going to be for the Oscars. And I don't understand people putting it in for Best Actor and Best Actress. I think it seems very much like Never Let Me Go or something. Flint Strong we've had on our radar for a while.
Yep.
This movie's coming out in the summer, like right in the summer in like July or something. It is Amazon MGM. Ryan Tyree Henry is probably going to be good. I think there's like a solid, coach performance in there for him. Yeah. But I don't know. It coming out in the summer makes me think they're kind of aiming for a commercial play. That's just
I don't know why people
signals.
aren't feeling it more, but it makes me think maybe there's something going on. There's potential here with the subject matter that I can't really shake.
Then why don't they premiere
so Barry Jenkins wrote the film. Rachel Morrison, cinematographer of Mudbound, is directing it. So I guess that's where like people aren't sure what's going on.
It's like an inspirational true story. I mean, I think what's going on here is the movie's probably fine. Because if it wasn't, then why wouldn't they premiere it at like TIFF?
Yeah. Yeah, I hear what you're saying on that.
The collaboration we had on our radar last year as well. It has Paul Bettany and Jeremy Pope. This one's going to feel very much like a play, written by Anthony McCartan, actually.
That's a very good sign.
Yeah, kind of like Two Popes, Meeting of the Minds. You have Andy Warhol, which Paul Bettany's playing, and then you have an artist that Jeremy Pope is playing. And I think Jeremy Pope could be a solid supporting actor contender. Like, I think that's going to be a really big role.
Anthony McCartan has had a great track record. That makes it hard for this film to deny.
Yeah, except he broke his track record with the Whitney Houston movie. You can watch them act on YouTube in these roles. The director of Living, which was, pretty well-made movie, got 2 big Oscar nominations, is doing a movie called The History of Sound, which is about 2 young men during World War I who set out to record the lives, voices, and music of their American countrymen. This is kind of Oscar baity, but it's probably going to be just like a Best British Film nominee. Yeah, you have Paul Mescal and Josh O'Connor.
It's like a boring British period movie.
Did you know that David Mackenzie is a film this year, the director of Hell or High Water?
I did not know that.
It has Lily James and Riz Ahmed in the lead roles. It's a thriller, though, and it's kind of a crime thriller. It's typical for him, I guess, but I don't think it's quite there for that reason. You know, it's about corruption and corporations. When I look at the images, I don't think it seems like it. We have Hedda, which is from Amazon and MGM. We have Tessa Thompson, maybe a little buzz for Tessa Thompson, maybe. It's based on a stage drama from 1981. It's Nia DaCosta, who directed Candyman, Little Woods, and The Marvels. There's a film that apparently has 3 directors that is a dark comedy. Cate Blanchett is in it. Alicia Vikander is in it, and it's about world leaders who meet at the G7 but get lost in the woods while trying to compose a joint statement. So this sounds like a political satire. It says it's a dark comedy. It's a Canadian film, so it'll probably premiere at TIFF. Guy Madden is a director who apparently has done some like critically acclaimed films, but I have like not heard of them. Oh Canada is Paul Schrader's new film with Richard Gere and Jacob Elordi and Uma Thurman. I believe that Richard Gere and Jacob Elordi are playing the same person at different points in their lives or something. It's about draft evaders in Canada, or who fled to Canada. I'm not going to predict the new Paul Schrader movie. Amelia Perez is kind of on our radar. It's Jacques Audiard, who did Rust and Bone, A Prophet. This has Zoe Saldana, Edgar Ramirez, and Selena Gomez. But it's kind of a crime film. It's tagged as a comedy and a musical for some reason on IMDb. I don't think it's going anywhere, but it's on my radar. Ron Howard's directing a movie this year. Or at least it's in post-production, as Sydney Sweeney and Vanessa Kirby and Ana de Armas and Jude Law and Daniel Bruhl. It's from the writer of Tetris last year. It's about a group of people fueled by a profound desire for change. In order to turn back their society, they leave everything behind and they set their futures on the harsh landscape of the Galapagos. I can't predict this because it's Ron Howard and it says it's a thriller. But it has a good cast, and it's Ron Howard, so we have to put it on here, I guess. Jim Jarmusch has a film that is in production or post-production or something. Also, hey, Cate Blanchett, we just said. Vicky Krieps and Charlotte Rampling. But because it's Jim Jarmusch, you know, the rule is don't predict Jim Jarmusch films. Long Day's Journey into Night, that's a Jessica Lange vehicle. Best Actress or Bust for that film. By the way, no... The Wild Robot, not predicting The Wild Robot for Best Picture, not predicting any animated films for Best Picture. I don't know why one would do that, considering last year we had Boy in the Heron and Spider-Verse and they both got ignored. That's crazy. So I'm not predicting any animated films, and I also think people need to chill a little bit about The Wild Robot. Wow, the world is so beautiful. It's like, it's just so broad.
Yeah, I already feel like I know what that film's going to be. It's going to be visually very beautiful looking, but it's going to teach me a lesson, and I'm going to be like, yeah, I know what that lesson is.
The animated Lord of the Rings film might have a very interesting style. I would consider that for animated feature.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that, but
I think that Moana 2 and Inside Out 2 are probably not going to contend to win anything. We don't really even have like any non-English films on here. Like even the Cannes films we have on here, like I'm not seeing anything.
That's why we really need to wait for Cannes to like show us what the non-English films are this year.
That is our early predictions. What do you think about this?
That was quite exhaustive. If you had to guess, would you say we have 4 or 5 right?
4. I'm just not feeling like this is the kind of year where we're getting 5 or more.
But at the same time, I feel like we were very thorough this year. Like when we looked very deep into the movies, I do feel convinced that we landed on like the best top 10 that we could.
Well, I don't know about that.
I mean, people can try to convince us like what films we missed, or that we're just like overlooking, and I will listen to you, and I want to listen to you. But I feel like we made pretty good cases for all the films that are here. I would say we probably got 4 right, but hopefully, you know, if you include 15, maybe we have like 6 or 7. That'd be really good. Top 20, we probably got like 7.
Typically, like 20 and down, we'll get like one movie.
Yeah.
Like, all that is just for one movie. Last year we had 2 movies that we didn't know existed that got nominated, and those were Anatomy of a Fall and American Fiction, so I'm sure that will happen again.
Yep. It always happens to one film we don't really think exists. If you want to know the top 10 for what the community thinks so far, Dune Part 2 is number 1, then it's Sing Sing, Blitz, same top 3, Megalopolis, sure, I get it. Joker, I get it. Kinds of Kindness, I think we're misguided here. I think we're misled.
I see why people think
excited, but I see why people think it. The Piano Lesson, Furiosa, I think it's like a name visibility thing. Untitled Gladiator sequel.
That's surprising.
Yeah,
I thought people had a lot of doubt.
But I think people like jumped on this really early and they got excited and they just were like, oh yeah, I know what Gladiator is. That won Best Picture like a decade ago or 20 years ago. Nosferatu. People get excited about Eggers.
I think that's crazy. I still think Nosferatu is crazy.
Queer is like surprisingly high, but people love Guadagnino.
That's where I'm at with it, though. You know,
it's 11. Conclave number 12, The Apprentice, Nickel Boys. So like they're thinking about those, but like we have all those.
A Real Pain 15 and
Real
DD
Pain at
16.
15,
People are
DD
trying to do a Sundance film.
They're thinking about Sundance. Challengers 17. You're just like flat out no, it's not gonna happen.
That's right.
Juror number 2. That's a fair place. 18.
Oh, should we have mentioned Civil War?
For sound, I think sound could happen
because the initial reactions are like masterpiece, and that is going to take a turn. It's going to take a turn because the film is apolitical and people are going to start shitting on it for that reason.
Yeah.
Now some people may think it's special for that reason. I'm curious to see the movie so that I can like see what I think about all that.
Yeah.
But I think the initial reactions are like way up here and the movie's sound or bust.
People say it's polarizing, but I don't think it's because it's taking a big swing. I think I'm reading reviews and I'm gathering that the film is polarizing because it's not actually doing politics, but it's making a Civil War film. It's just very out there. It's out there. And people saying it's a masterpiece, I think they're very intrigued by like the action filmmaking and they're thinking it's a very beautifully made movie or the cinematography is good and the sound's great. But I don't know. I have to see it for myself and like see what I think. You know, I hope you download the app. I keep putting out exciting things or things that I think are exciting. You know, when you download it, you can give me feedback. I like getting feedback on the app. I like when people write me and say what they think should happen, and I like directly implement those things. Put a message in the app. You'll see where to do it. And tell me, you know, what you think. Make suggestions. Tell me about bugs. Definitely tell me about bugs. Also, I released a feature that is you can make personalized lists, which don't have to do with predictions. And not only did I make it so that you can do 2024 and 2025 favorites, and you can categorize those into like Academy Award categories like costumes, director. I also released a list recently which people haven't discovered yet, seemingly, and this is for most anticipated movies, which